Do not let the system decide for you, or worse, ignore you. You decide, you vote. My name is Vishwajit Singh. I am coming to you from New York City. My vote does not matter. Why vote? And that simple question, that doubt, is there by design. It's by the design of our system of governance, of our history. The answers to this simple question require that we look at the lessons of American history. And most Americans, including myself, I'll acknowledge that, do not know our history very well. So in the beginning of our republic, when we got independence from the colonizers, at the time of the writing of the Constitution, there was pretty much one group of people who got to vote, white men. And it remained that way for a long time. From 1900 to 1965, the federal government did not protect the right of African Americans to vote. Women, interestingly, also did not have the right to vote until 1920. It took decades of struggle on part of African Americans and many others, but especially African Americans, to have this Voting Rights Act passed in 1965. So you, me, every other American citizen equally has a right to vote. Among Western democracies, we have the worst record when it comes to voters showing up at polls to vote. In the last presidential election cycle, 2016, which most of us would say was very divisive, was considered pivotal by all kinds of parameters you can measure. And you would think a lot of Americans showed up to vote. How many Americans eligible to vote showed up to vote in the 2016 presidential election cycle? 55%. From 1960 onwards, our presidential voter turnout average is 52%. The system is actually designed that way. It's designed not to get 100% of us voting. We actually make it hard to vote. We don't make it easy to vote. We don't have uniform national voting laws. Every state gets to design its own rules and laws. So the question here is, who gets to design these voting laws? Well, it's local, especially state officials. So it's state legislatures that decide, that create districts, that decide the laws. That is why it's incredibly imperative that we, you and I, and every American citizen 18 or over gets to vote. Make sure you're registered. Make sure you know who's running for election at federal, at state, at local levels. You know what's on the ballot. You educate yourself. You know where your polling station is. You know where your latest drop-off box is for your ballots if you're doing early voting. If you do not let the system decide for you, or worse, ignore you. You decide, you vote.